Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have the founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. And today is Pharmacist Fridays on Daily with Doc, where we have an amazing pharmacist bringing his experience from behind the counter, working with all those pills, to us here and sharing a lot about the importance of nutrition and how pharmaceuticals are what we wish they could be. Nutrition is.
Don't mess up my food there.
I got that wrong. I know. So he's going to correct me on that. But folks, you are in for a treat. So make sure that if you were referred to by somebody else, that you get back with them and tell them thank you for sharing this information with you. And also, if you have questions, they are your first point of contact. Now, this program is a resource for an amazing community. So the person that shared this with you is one of those amazing people. And chances are they also have their own way of helping you get what you need in regards to anything that's mentioned on this program today and any day on Daily with Doc, as we are here Monday through Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific, 1 to 2 Mountain, 2 to 3 Central, and 3 to 4 Eastern. And of course, around the world, you're going to have to figure out your own time conversion. But it is 12 Pacific that we start here. And you can join us live by going to zoom.dailywithdoc.com. So, folks, this program is being sponsored by Daily with Doc. On our website, we have many resources to help you add more things to your toolbox when it comes to being your own health advocate. That includes replays of our previous presentations here and podcasts. It also has some amazing articles that have been written that share more information. So if you like to watch things, we've got you covered. If you like to read things, we've got you covered as well. And when it comes to reading, we have the good foods, bad foods list also on the website. Now, the shopping cart that is there for people that are not already working with somebody else, or for those who are brand new, or those who know their preferred customer ID, because that preferred customer gives you wholesale pricing when it comes to purchasing the products we talk about on our program. Person that referred you, though, can get you those wholesale prices as well, and they can tell you all about that. Now, today, we are talking about cortisol and how it affects us within our bodies, including the ability or inability to reach your optimal weight. And I can't think of a better person than Pharmacist Ben Fuchs, as he talks about cortisol and helps us to understand what it is that's affecting an imbalance in cortisol. And not only what's affecting it, but also the solutions that are available to help you in this journey of regaining a balance of cortisol. Now, I am going to bring to the screen with me Pharmacist Ben Fuchs. Pharmacist Ben, hello and welcome to Daily with Doc. Thank you so much for being here with us and just sharing Fridays, as you do have a busy schedule and you won't be here next Friday, but hey, we're thankful to have you every day that we can get you.
Thank you for thanking me. I appreciate it. It's totally my pleasure. I do this for fun.
I'm glad it's fun to you because this is fun to me as well.
So, and that's one of the cool things. We always talk about health and we talk about helping people with their health challenges and making a positive difference and making money. But sometimes we forget to talk about the fun part. There's a lot of fun in this. Connection with people, connection with like-minded people, helping people is a fun thing. Learning about nutrition, learning about health is a fun thing. There's an aspect of just joy and fun associated with all of this.
Well, and when you're doing something you enjoy doing, it doesn't feel so much like work.
Absolutely. Sometimes I'm like, I think I'm gonna reach out to AJ and do a video tonight. I do that. I just like to do it. I like to connect with people. So fun is the most important reason why we're here, why we're alive. It's for fun. Hang on. And that has a lot to do with what we're going to talk about here today. So cortisol, I'm guilty of throwing that term out, that biochemical name out a lot, and just assuming that everybody understands what we're talking about. But I think that might be I might be taking things for granted, and I think it might help illuminate a lot of the reasons why we're not as healthy as we should be when we understand what this hormone does. So basically, there's a part of our body that perceives the outside world and interprets it into the inside world, the world of biochemistry. So we see a sight, or we hear a sound, or we smell a smell, or we feel we get touched, we feel something on our bodies, and those sensations, whether they're visual or olfactory, or whether or audio or haptic, those sensations are turned into biochemistry in the body. The outside world is converted into the inside world, in essence. And the part of the body that converts the outside world into the inside world, I should probably turn my phone off here. The part of the world that turns the outside world into the inside world is the nervous system. The nervous system is entrusted with taking sights and sounds and smells and touches and tastes and converting them into biochemistry, the biochemistry of the body. We call the sounds and we call the part of the body that receives the sounds and the smells and the tastes and the touches and the sights. We call those different parts of the body the senses. The senses can be thought of as periscopes from the nervous system to the outside world, and the signals from the outside world go through the periscopes, whether the periscope is the eyes or the ears or the skin or the tongue or the nose. Goes in through the periscopes, hits the nervous system. The nervous system then converts those signals or sensations, if you will, into biochemistry. So far, so good?
So far, so good.
Okay. So the nervous system takes the signals that come in through the senses and converts it into biochemistry. But here's where it gets a little bit tricky. You don't just have one nervous system. You have two nervous systems, or maybe more accurately, you have one nervous system that is divided into two sections. You have a nervous system that is divided into a section of safety, and a nervous system that is divided into a section of danger. So part of the nerves, when a signal comes into the eyes, we'll use the eyes for example, because most of our senses come in through the eyes. So you see a sight. The signals from that sight go into the eyes and into the nervous system. They get directed into either the nervous system of danger, survival, threat, or the nervous system of safety, contentment, peace. So signal comes into the eyes, goes into the nervous system and gets channeled either into the nervous system of danger or the nervous system of safety. The nervous system of danger will activate all of the things that are important for getting us out of a jam. The nervous system of safety will activate all of the things that allow us to live a functional life, to grow and to breathe and to digest and to fight diseases. As it turns out, all the good stuff is located in the nervous system of safety, or the nervous system of safety. The nervous system of danger is a very stressful, literally, is associated with very stressful biochemical responses, literally. It's called your stress nervous system for that reason. Technically, the nervous system of safety is called the parasympathetic nervous system, and the nervous system of danger, or survival, or threat, or stress is called the sympathetic nervous system. In psychology, psychologists are fond of saying there's only two emotions, fear and love. And in this way, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system can be thought of as your fear nervous system or your love nervous system. So you're either taking information from the outside world and channeling it into a fear response, or you're either taking that information and channeling it into a love response. If you take that information and channel it into a fear response, say the information is a lion chasing you, certain biochemical functions will occur. For example, under conditions of activation of the stress or survival or danger nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, your pupils will get really wide. That way you could see better. That way you could see all the signals. Presumably, if you're running from a lion, you got to be able to see really well. The sympathetic nervous system or the survival nervous system will increase your heart rate. The sympathetic nervous system or the stress nervous system will shut down your digestive system. The stress nervous system will inhibit the secretion of digestive juices, including bile from the gallbladder and pancreatic juices from the pancreas. The stress nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, will stimulate the adrenal glands to produce stress hormones, which we're going to talk about here in a second. The most important emergency stress hormone is epinephrine and norepinephrine, or adrenaline and noradrenaline. But the long-term stress response is associated with the hormone cortisol, which is what we're going to talk about here today. The sympathetic nervous system, the stress nervous system, will also relax the bladder. The sympathetic nervous system will also, stress nervous system will slow down the thyroid. The sympathetic nervous system will reduce fertility. The sympathetic nervous system, stress nervous system will take blood and shunt it to the back of your brain where your fight or flight center is, away from the front of your brain where you make good creative decisions. The sympathetic nervous system, the stress nervous system will suppress the immune system. The sympathetic nervous system will, in general, take energy in the form of blood and nutrients and oxygen away from the parts of the body that are not immediately necessary, and reroute that energy to the parts of the body that are immediately necessary, namely the muscles and the heart and the lungs, the bronchioli in the lungs. The immune system under conditions of stress will become suppressed because it's not necessary. When you're running from a saber-toothed tiger, you don't have to worry about fighting bacteria or fighting fungi. When you're running from a tiger, when your sympathetic nervous system is activated, you don't have to worry about digesting your food. When your sympathetic nervous system is activated, when your stress nervous system is activated, blood pressure goes up. The heart rate will be stimulated. All of the things that we find problematic about life, including things like poor immunity, poor growth and repair, poor skin, poor thyroid functioning, infertility, anxiety, the stress response, insomnia, all of these are activated by the sympathetic stress nervous system. On the other hand, the relaxation nervous system is associated with good immunity, functional digestion, stimulation of digestive juices, building and growth and repair, beautiful skin, creativity and imagination and fertility. All the stuff we love about life is associated with the parasympathetic nervous system. So while the sympathetic nervous system, the stress nervous system, is really important for survival, for our long-term enjoyment of life, it's important to learn to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation nervous system, or as it's known as the rest and digest nervous system, as much as possible. We'll talk about some strategies for doing that. Today, we're going to talk about cortisol, which is emblematic of the stress nervous system. So all the things that we talked about when the sympathetic or stress nervous system is activated, the dry mouth and the increased heart rate and the dilation of the bronchioli and the relaxation of the urinary bladder and the suppression of digestive juices and the insomnia and the anxiety and the poor growth and repair. All of these are activated by cortisol. So learning to understand how cortisol works and learning to stabilize or even lower cortisol is really important for having a great life and for fighting diseases. One of the things cortisol does is it suppresses the immune system, as I mentioned. In fact, you can see the suppression of the immune system in response to cortisol, or you can understand the suppression of the immune system and the inflammatory system in response to cortisol by hydrocortisone creams. If you have a rash, you'll go to the drugstore and you'll get a steroid cream, or maybe you'll go to the doctor and get a prescription for a steroid cream. Why do they give you a steroid cream when you have a rash? Because steroid creams, i.e. cortisol, reduces or relaxes or suppresses inflammation and immunity. The same thing is true internally. We know that all chronic degenerative diseases have an inflammatory component, particularly autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis or rheumatoid arthritis or various connective tissue autoimmune diseases, type 1 diabetes, etc. And the standard drug for treating all of these conditions is cortisol derivatives or cortisol analogs, drugs that mimic cortisol by virtue of this suppression of inflammation. So the logic being, medical logic being, when we shut down inflammation by using stress hormone, the drug that's stress hormone-like drug, inflammation goes away and the symptoms disappear. And doctors love that because doctors are all about symptoms. I remember watching in pharmacy school a movie of a lady who had one of the most horrible diseases known to man, which is today still a horrible disease, but it's not as horrible as it was in the 1940s. And this was a terrible disease where people's hands are like this, like all crooked, and they can't walk very well. They have an inability to move their joints in their legs and their knees and their ankles and their feet. And they showed this was a movie where they showed this lady at a medical conference, and she was walking down the aisle at the medical conference, and she had this horrible condition, which is called rheumatoid arthritis, by the way, which, it's still a horrible condition, but back in the 1940s, there were no drugs for it. There's nothing they could do about it. And it was about as miserable a health challenge as anybody could have. And they showed this lady doing this horrible, painful walk. It was painful to even watch her walk down the aisle. And then the next day, they show the same lady, and she's walking normally right down the aisle, just like bounding across the aisle. And the difference between day one and day two was this radical new drug that she was given that in the 1940s was revolutionary, and that was a cortisol derivative called prednisone, which you may have heard of. And prednisone being a powerful anti-inflammatory because it duplicates the chemistry of stress, and under stress, inflammation is quieted down and the immune system is calmed down. As I said, when you're running from a tiger, you don't need an immune system, you don't need an inflammatory system. And this prednisone drug that suppressed the immune system and suppressed the inflammatory system obviously changed this lady's life and changed a lot of people's lives, and it became a life-saving drug for folks who were dealing with inflammatory conditions. However, the cause of the inflammation didn't go away. It was just the symptom that was hidden, and this is the problem with giving drugs in general, particularly with giving steroid drugs. So cortisol, prednisone, dexamethasone, fluocinolone, triamcinolone, usually these steroid drugs will have an ONE at the end, ONE, are all derivatives of cortisol, or its drug version, cortisone. So what is the issue with cortisol and our health? Well, cortisol is great for the short term because it gets you out of a jam. It helps activate the biochemistry of survival, but in the long term, it creates serious health challenges. So while it's functional to have your digestive system suppressed when you're running from a tiger, it's not functional to have your digestive system suppressed when you're just living your life. While it's functional to have your immune system suppressed when you're running from a tiger, it's not functional to have your immune system suppressed when you're just trying to live your life. While it's functional to redirect blood away from your skin and your extremities towards the muscles and towards the heart when you're running away from a tiger, it's not functional to have that happen when you're trying to live your life. Likewise, when it's functional not to fall asleep on the African savannah when a tiger is chasing you. When you're living your life and trying to get a good night's sleep, obviously, not being able to sleep is a big problem. So cortisol creates serious problems when it is secreted in response to non-life-threatening situations. Cortisol and stress hormones are functional when they're secreted in response to life-threatening situations, but when they're secreted in response to non-life-threatening situations, they're problematic. So you say, why would a non-life-threatening situation create an emergency response that would stimulate the secretion of cortisol? And the answer is our minds or our brains. We make danger up. And to the body, a danger in the brain is the same as a danger in real life. It doesn't know the difference between a danger that is related to a credit card bill and a danger that's related to a saber-toothed tiger. The biochemical phenomena in response to both are the same. And even though today we don't have saber-toothed tigers, we got lots of credit card bills and lots of psychological stressors and lots of dysfunctional family stressors and lots of job stressors and money stressors and government stressors and stressors that are imaginary and made up and created wholly in the brain. Our life is not threatened by a credit card bill, but once our imagination gets involved and once our mind gets involved, it gets perceived as a life-threatening situation and the body responds accordingly. To the body, an imaginary threat is exactly the same as a real threat, and we have created a culture in the year 2024 in America where we have imaginary lions and tigers and bears, i.e. imaginary threats, everywhere. You can't go a minute watching TV or listening to the radio or reading a newspaper for a minute without getting some kind of imaginary threat to the body will be perceived as a saber-toothed tiger. So most of us, many of us, if not most of us, are running the biochemistry of threat, the biochemistry of emergency. We're secreting biochemicals which are designed to get us out of a life-threatening situation, even though we're not in life-threatening situations. And you can rest assured that if you have a chronic health challenge, you are secreting secreting high levels of emergency hormones in non-emergency situations. Learning to calm the body down becomes very important. One of the most insidious places where emergency threats come into the body is through the first 2 points in the triangle of disease. And you know, cortisol is the third point in the triangle of disease. Elevated cortisol. The triangle of disease, quick reminder, is the digestive system, the blood sugar system, and then the third point in the triangle of disease, what I call the adrenal thyroid or the cortisol thyroid axis, the connection between cortisol and the thyroid, between stress and the thyroid. So, from the digestive system perspective, once toxicity gets into the bloodstream through a leaky gut, once toxic chemicals get into the bloodstream, either which represent pieces of bacteria, secretions from bacteria, food particles, and immune particles or immune chemicals get into the bloodstream, this creates an emergency response to the body. So leaky gut, intestinal permeability, is the first point on the triangle of disease that leads to hypercortisol. It does this through the mediator of blood sugar, the second point on the triangle of disease, and high blood sugar and low blood sugar will both cause an emergency response, high blood sugar representing an emergency and low blood sugar representing an emergency, which will also stimulate the secretion of cortisol. So right from the get-go, aside from working with imagination and the mind to relax the body and to turn off the stress response, you've got two major places where you can relax the stress response or turn off the stress response, and that's the digestive system and the blood sugar system. So the hypercortisol patient, that is the patient who's dealing with a chronic disease or who has issues with hypothyroidism or problems with an autoimmune issue or some kind of immune disease or infertility or anxiety or depression or any of the things that are associated with elevated cortisol. Point number one, work on digestive health. Patch up the leaky gut. Use your I-26. It also turns out that bacteria in the gut secrete calming chemicals. So making sure that your gut microbiome is healthy, using your nightly essence, as well as the I-26, using your ultimate microbiome and the daily digest and ultimate enzymes, all the things that we need to do for digestive health. And Fortunately, Longevity has a wide range of wonderful digestive health supplements, and this is on top of using food strategies, of course. And we talked yesterday about how calories also represent stressors, and just reducing caloric intake can lower your cortisol response. After we eat any meal, particularly meals that contain lots of sugar and lots of fat and processing chemicals, we get a postprandial stress response, a post-eating stress response. So just reducing your calories will reduce the stress response. Now, ironically, there's a big circle, because when you have elevated cortisol, you don't digest your food, you don't process your nutrients as appropriately, and that creates a further burden on the digestive system, which creates a further stress response, which creates a further burden on the digestive system, which creates a further stress response, and you get this vicious downward spiral. So you can cut the head off the snake by using all the digestive health strategies and digestive health supplements that we talk about on this program and that I talk about all the time. That's point number one. Point number two is stabilizing the blood sugar. Hyperglycemia, when you eat sugar, your blood sugar goes up. That will activate a stress response. Hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, represents an emergency to the body, and that also activates a stress response. So both high blood sugar, hyperglycemia, and hypoglycemia will activate a cortisol response, a stress response. So keeping the blood sugar stable is also very important. Interestingly, one of the ways the body responds to low blood sugar is by the secretion of cortisol, which has an effect of raising blood sugar. Cortisol has a hyperglycemic effect. First of all, it's a way of balancing out the low blood sugar, the hypoglycemia, which happens after you eat sugar. Your blood sugar drops and cortisol comes to the rescue and releases sugar from the liver. One of the main places where blood sugar goes up is through sugar release from the liver. We get sugar from foods, obviously, but sugar can also be released from the liver. When cortisol releases sugar from the liver following either hypoglycemia, which in turn follows the ingestion of sugar, hope that's not too confusing, because that's exactly how it happens. You eat sugar, your sugar drops, cortisol comes to the rescue and releases sugar from the liver, your sugar goes up. Once the sugar goes up, one of two things will happen. Either that sugar will be used to drive chemistry in your muscles so you can run from your saber-toothed tiger, or if there's no saber-toothed tiger and it's just a credit card bill, that sugar will not get used up by your muscles because you're not running from your credit card bill, and instead that sugar will get stored as fat. And this is why people over the course of time, as their cortisol levels stay high, will become overweight. And this is one of the classic signs of excess cortisol. And this is the relationship between cortisol and weight. So let me say that again, because I can understand why that would be a little confusing. When you're running from a lion or a tiger, cortisol will stimulate the release of sugar so that that sugar can fuel your muscles so you can run. But if you're not running from a tiger and it's only a credit card bill that's causing the stimulation of cortisol, now that sugar is not going to have anywhere to go. It doesn't need to go to your muscles because you're not running. It's going to get stored as fat. And this is one of the hidden causes of weight gain that people can't seem to control because it's not necessarily related to food. And just cutting your calories isn't going to help you lose weight if you're releasing sugar from the liver following chronic stress or chronic activation of cortisol. Secondly, the elevated cortisol, the body's response to high cortisol over time is to suppress thyroid function. This is why the adrenal or cortisol thyroid link or axis is the third point on the triangle of disease. Once the thyroid becomes suppressed following elevated secretion of cortisol, all the organs of the body will be functioning less than optimally, because thyroid hormone is the foot on the gas of biochemistry for all the cells of your body. And when you're hypothyroid, following excess cortisol secretion, your heart will not be functioning appropriately, and cholesterol levels will build up, and atrial fibrillation and ventricular tachycardia and heart cardiomyopathies will ensue. Your brain will not be functioning correctly, and anxiety and depression and brain fog and memory problems will ensue. Once the thyroid is suppressed, you'll have skin problems, and you'll have bone problems, and you'll have fertility issues, and pretty much every single health challenge you can name will follow hypothyroidism, which in turn follows elevated secretion of cortisol. Hypothyroidism will also lead to a slowdown of metabolism, which will lead to weight gain. And this is the second reason why chronically elevated cortisol levels will cause weight gain. Number one, because it will cause the release of sugar, which isn't going anywhere because it has to get stored back in fat cells. And number two, because it suppresses thyroid function, which slows down the metabolism. So for those two reasons, chronically elevated cortisol will cause weight gain and the accumulation of body fat. Of course, the accumulation of body fat is also inflammatory, and that will lead to more cortisol secretion, and you'll end up with another vicious spiral where body fat deposition leads to higher cortisol, leads to higher body fat deposition, leads to more cortisol, leads to higher fat deposition. You can see there's all of these vicious spirals that are occurring in the body, all due to just a few causes. The third point about elevated cortisol secretion is long-term chronically elevated cortisol will keep blood sugar elevated, because to the body, cortisol represents danger, and in response to danger, blood sugar goes up. So for patients who can't lower their blood sugar, even though they're doing all the blood sugar things they're supposed to do, a healthy blood sugar pack, and not eating the carbohydrates, etc., and they still can't lower their blood sugar, guaranteed they're hypercortisol. For patients who can't lose weight, even though they're doing all the things they're supposed to do, they're working out, their caloric intake they've lowered their caloric intake, they've done all the things they know they're supposed to do to lose weight, they still can't lose weight. Again, you can blame cortisol and its secondary suppression of thyroid function. So you can see how working with the cortisol system is extremely important. And there's lots of ways to do that. The most obvious way, if you understand the triangle of disease, is to work on the first 2 points. That is to correct digestive health and to stabilize the blood sugar. And I know I've talked about the triangle of disease as being the 3 points of bodily breakdown that underlie all chronic health challenges, but to simplify, we can just talk about the first 2 points. And the first 2 points are extremely simple, if not necessarily easy, to address. That is, you eat less calories, you stay away from the problem foods, especially the bad foods, but even foods that are so-called good foods can be bad for some people, but obviously the bad foods. And then you use all the digestive support nutrients that you could think of, including the nightly essence and the ultimate enzymes and the I-26, ultimate microbiome, the daily digest, Dr. Ari's liver cleanse. We've got a whole slew of wonderful digestive health supplements. And in addition to that, you want to do a food diary where you write down all the foods you're eating and the problems associated with those foods. Then you eliminate the foods that are causing problems. Food diary, elimination diet. The second point is the blood sugar system. And again, simple but not necessarily easy to work on the blood sugar system. Reducing calories is going to be very important for the digestive system also, but for the blood sugar system. Staying away from high glycemic index foods that turn into sugar very fast. Reducing your sugar intake and using nutrients that help the body process sugar. Longevity has great digestive health supplements. We got great blood sugar stabilizing supplements. So in addition to going low blood sugar, reducing your calorie intake, you're going to want to use the Sweet Eze and your ultimate niacin and your ultimate selenium and even your ultimate microbiome, which is a digestive health supplement, but it can also help slow down the release of sugar from foods. Using your Beyond Tangy Tangerine with your meals can help you process sugar and help you reduce your calories. The ultimate MSM, Zinc FX, CFX, these are all supplements that we don't necessarily talk about as being important for the blood sugar system, but are. Also, drinking water, a lot of water, after you eat something sweet or after you eat something that's got a high glycemic index. The glycemic index, by the way, is a measurement of foods that are turned into sugar rapidly. High glycemic index foods are turned into sugar rapidly. Low glycemic index foods are foods that are not turned into sugar rapidly or turned into sugar more slowly. So things like fruit juice and white bread and French fries and sweets and cakes, etc., cereals, those are turned into sugar very rapidly. Those are called high glycemic index foods. And you want to stay away from those as much as possible. And when you do enjoy those foods or eat those foods, drink lots of fluids and use fiber, vegetable fiber, particularly with those foods, and that will slow down the release of sugar. So working on the first 2 points on the triangle disease is the most obvious way to help to address cortisol issues. Then there are relaxation strategies that you can use. One of the most important strategies, relaxation strategies for helping lower cortisol, is slow, deep, rhythmic breathing. All three of those words are important. Slow breathing tells the body it's safe. When the body experiences rapid breathing, it thinks it's running from a tiger. The body doesn't really know what's happening in the world. It's just perceiving the chemistry, and the chemistry of rapid breathing says, oh, the body must be in an emergency state. So rapid breathing will turn on cortisol, and cortisol will turn on rapid breathing, and you'll have yet another downward spiral. Slow breathing will break that. Deep breathing likewise tells the body it's safe, because when you're running from a tiger, you're not breathing deeply. You're breathing shallowly. And then rhythm tells the body it's safe. The body loves rhythm. That's why when in the old days they used to hold a little watch, and when they're doing hypnosis, and you'd watch the watch go left and right and left and right, and all of a sudden you'd be sleepy, because when the body goes into a rhythm, when it resonates with a specific rhythm, it feels safe. Chaos represents danger to the body. Rhythm represents safety to the body. So slow, deep, rhythmic breathing is another very powerful way to lower cortisol. And you can experience this for yourself. If you're experiencing a surge of cortisol and you have anxiety or you have insomnia, or you're freaked out about something, you get a phone call that's bad news, or you're in the middle of a fight with your spouse, activating the parasympathetic nervous system, lowering cortisol by slow, deep, rhythmic breathing can give you immediate relief. Also, I should add at this point, the relationship between cortisol and the digestive system is so important that one of the most functional or healthiest things you could do when you're eating your food is relax. And conversely, one of the worst things you could do when you're eating your food is eat under stress, because cortisol suppresses the digestive system. In fact, any digestive problem, constipation, for example, irritable bowel syndrome, or gas or cramping, for example, heartburn, for example, or GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. Any digestive problem will subside when you are relaxed. That's one of the reasons why historically we would say grace before meals, because as it turns out, gratitude is one of the best ways to lower cortisol and relax the body. You can do this at night tonight for people who have insomnia. And insomnia, as I say, is a classic manifestation of the cortisol response and of activated sympathetic nervous system. When you go to bed tonight, practice slow, deep, if you have insomnia, practice slow, deep, rhythmic breathing, and think about 10 different things you're grateful for. It could be something like your bed, or your spouse, or your pet, or your warm blanket, or whatever. You can come up with 10 things. And as you go down the list of 10 things you're grateful for, you'll find your body's relaxing. In fact, you could do it right now. If you come up with 10 different things that your body is that you're grateful for, you'll find your body's relaxing. One of the great gifts that our Maker gave us, and this is so powerful, is we can only think one thing at a time. You can't think two things at the same time. And as I was talking to Sportus Nutritionosis yesterday, hey Sportus, in the Bible, Jesus says, you're either with me or against me. And in the same way, in the body, you're either thinking a good thought, you're either thinking a positive thought, you're thinking a parasympathetic thought, a safety thought, or you're thinking an emergency thought, a dangerous thought, a stressful thought. You can only think one thought at a time. So be very conscious of the thoughts you're thinking, And you'll find that if you're activating if you're thinking thoughts that are positive, enjoyable, gratitude, things you're happy for, spiritual thoughts, anything that relaxes the body, you'll find that you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system, and the sympathetic nervous system is standing down. So all of these strategies, whether they're food strategies, eating less food, reducing your calories, staying away from the bad foods or foods that activate a stress response, reducing your sugar intake, or strictly focusing on the adrenal glands and on the mind-body connection using deep breathing strategies and gratitude, etc. All of these are wonderful ways to lower your cortisol. If you're dealing with a chronic degenerative disease, just assume that you're secreting elevated levels of cortisol. If you're hypothyroid, just assume that you're dealing with elevated levels of cortisol. And that means anything you could do to activate the relaxation nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest nervous system will not only improve your longevity, not only reduce the symptoms of chronic degenerative diseases, but it will give you a better life. And on top of everything else, you'll lose weight too. Now, last thing I want to say is that cortisol has some things in common with another hormone that is very important for women, and that's estrogen. Cortisol and estrogen can both be regarded as stress hormones, and lowering estrogen, or at least balancing estrogen, is another very important strategy. And many of the problems associated with cortisol, including the weight gain and the anxiety and the insomnia and the predisposition to inflammatory diseases, which are linked to the stress response, are also associated with estrogen. And if you want a laundry list of all of the things that can happen when we're hypercortisol, we're secreting lots of cortisol, think menopause. The symptoms that women go through during menopause that most women assume to be just normal are really dramatic examples of the stress response. And so eliminating estrogen for a woman, especially around menopause, improving the elimination of estrogen, which is eliminated through the digestive system and through the bowels, can also help relax the stress response and some of the untoward effects which are associated with chronic secretion of cortisol. And you can get help, you can balance out estrogen with your ultimate EFAs, which have an estrogen balancing effect, fatty vitamins in general, which you'll get in your Beyond Tangy Tangerine and your Ultimate Multi and your Synaptive and the Immortalium. Those also have cortisol lowering properties. And probably the most important thing you could do to help, estrogen lowering properties or estrogen balancing properties. And probably the most important thing you can do to help improve the cortisol / estrogen response by helping you detoxify or eliminate estrogen is improve digestive functioning, particularly at the level of the intestine and the gallbladder, because both bile and intestinal bacteria, the microbiome, are important for the elimination of estrogen. So if you're clogged up, that's going to increase the estrogen that circulates through the body that's not eliminated, and that's going to amplify the cortisol or stress response, and all the things that we talked about with cortisol are going to happen in response to the excess estrogen. Also, detoxification of estrogen you can use detoxification strategies, and that involves liver health. And as it turns out, the liver is one of the main organs that is responsive to metabolic syndrome or problems with blood sugar. So working with the blood sugar system is also going to be very important. And then one of the great strategies for helping detoxify estrogen to help improve this cortisol / estrogen stress response are cruciferous vegetables. And I consider cruciferous vegetables to be a woman, particularly a menopausal or perimenopausal woman's best friend. So while cruciferous vegetables may not have a direct effect on cortisol, they can have a beneficial effect on the cortisol response by helping detoxify estrogen, which has an amplifying effect on the cortisol response. So there's lots of places to work with. To sum up, digestive health, blood sugar health, calm the body down. This is the triangle of disease. And while cortisol does seem like has its own unique profile or spectrum of biochemical effects, they really are part and parcel of everything we talk about, including hypothyroidism and blood sugar, dysglycemia, and digestive health issues. So work on the triangle of disease. It's as simple as that. Make sure you're using your digestive health supplements, your blood sugar supplements, the healthy start pack, mental health strategies, relaxation strategies, slow, deep breathing, etc.
That's a lot to take in, but focusing on the digestion, focusing on
Blood sugar
blood sugar
and
now,
relaxing, calming the
and
body down.
relaxing.
Unless you're really running from a saber-toothed tiger, your cortisol is being secreted, elevated cortisol is being secreted inappropriately. Unless you're running from a tiger, or unless there's a really severe starvation stress or some real dramatic stress, which most of us don't have.
But the only person I know that would be running from a tiger is Albert. So
okay, that's right. Yeah, here's another quick way, real quick way to activate the parasympathetic nervous system to relax the body is to take a warm bath or a warm shower. And a lot of times, a lot of you guys will realize or remember that you always get great ideas in the shower. Do you ever notice that, Rebecca? The great ideas come to you in the shower. You don't have anything to write with. You gotta try and remember it. Why is that? Well, in the shower, a warm shower reroutes the blood from the fight or flight center of the brain, the back of the brain, the amygdala and the medulla, to the front of the brain where you have more creativity and more imagination. So these are some, and also for fertility. Infertility rates are increasing dramatically, largely because we're running hypercortisol. So relaxing the body before you try to conceive a baby is one of the best things you can do if you're trying to have a baby, if you're trying to conceive.
another great tip. And Albert says, or running from a leopard. Well, Ben, we have lots of questions. And the first question that came to my mind as we are coming to the end of your opening, it has to do with cruciferous vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
What happens the relationship to cruciferous vegetables and a thyroid that's not functioning properly?
Don't have that whole thing about goitrogens. That's minor. You can also steam your veggies if you want to reduce the goitrogens, but that's a drop in the bucket. The main reason why nobody's hypothyroid because they're eating cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables may contribute slightly to it, but it's very mild. And those are called goitrogens. The main reason why people are hypothyroid is because of elevated cortisol and because of autoimmunity, which is a digestive issue, not because of goitrogens. So it's much more important to enjoy the cruciferous vegetables, although if you steam your cruciferous vegetables, you'll reduce the goitrogen content.
And I heard that if you add a little bit of butter and let it melt, it helps with the absorption of
absolutely. Always add butter and steam your cruciferous broccoli or Brussels sprouts and add plenty of butter.
Fantastic. Well, Pharmacist Ben, we have hands up. We've got lots of questions coming in. I hope you don't have a hard stop. Do you?
No, I don't have a hard stop, but I do have a stop reasonably soon. But let's take some questions.
All right. Well, let's start with Verna, who has had her hand up first. Verna, can you go ahead and unmute yourself? What question do you have for Pharmacist Ben today?
Hi, good afternoon, you guys. Nice
Hello.
to see you. Well, I had a situation over Thanksgiving, and I ate some food, of course, that I don't normally eat. I was in Pennsylvania, and I had some spicy food. I had a juice that was like a ginger juice, and I also had some chocolates with almonds. No, didn't have almonds, they had walnuts. And later on in the day, I was feeling fine all day. But later on in the evening, I had this itching going on the side of my, like with my belt line, but more on the side of my body. Okay. And like a rash. Okay. The only thing I could think of immediately is, something was going on in the digestive system.
Always. When you have a rash, you have itchiness on the skin, the first thing to think about is a food, especially if it comes and goes. If it kind of sporadically appears here and there, you always want to link it to food. There's other things that can cause itching, but usually those are involved in the digestive system as well, like the liver and the kidney. Liver issues and kidney issues will also cause itching, but if it's sporadic like that and occurs after you eat, I would definitely I would blame a food, especially if it's a food that you haven't eaten or that
Yeah.
you're not used to eating. That's what I would be doing. There's not much you could do. Your immune system is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is activating the stress response. So you're going to have to ride it out. You can also use histamine blockers, antihistamines. That is things like Benadryl, or there's a couple of antihistamines you get by prescription. I forgot their name, that don't cause drowsiness. But Benadryl is pretty much what you want to do. And you can also make they used to make a Benadryl cream. I don't think they make it anymore, but you can make your own Benadryl cream by breaking open a Benadryl capsule and putting it into a cream and then applying it directly to the itching. But usually those things will go away. What you want to be careful of those if it doesn't go away, or if it
Yeah.
comes back all the time, like it comes and goes. That's something you want to be careful of. But once in a while, you can ride it out.
Yeah, it did. It's going away. And what I did, I put the plant minerals on it, actually, for the itching part of it. So it is going away. And I do have one of those tinctures for the liver.
I'm not sure what that would be, but now that you're reminding me of something, you could also take Fucoid Z capsule and mix it in with those minerals too. The Fucoid Z, or Fucoidin from the Fucoid Z, also has calming and soothing effects.
Okay. All right. And one other question I want to ask about, you talked about hypothyroidism, but how about hyper?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hyperthyroidism is also called Graves' disease, and that is a autoimmune disease of the thyroid. Hashimoto's disease is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid that causes suppression of thyroid function. Graves' disease is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid that causes hyperthyroidism. And the misery that is Graves' disease and hyperthyroidism is impossible to describe. It is so, so miserable, much worse than hypothyroidism. People who have Graves' disease, their eyes will come out of it, will get real bulgy.
Oh, yeah.
They'll be jittery, they'll be sweaty, they can't sleep, their blood pressure will be high. It's just an awful, awful condition. It's an autoimmune disease. It goes away when you stop eating, which alone tells you about the relationship between autoimmunity and the digestive system. But what you really want to do is you want to focus on a leaky gut, intestinal permeability, and elimination of problem foods. And then, of course, using all of Youngevity's wonderful, wonderful digestive support supplements. This, next to the plant-derived minerals, which, of course, are probably the most important nutrients in the Youngevity formulary, in my opinion, the digestive support supplements are the next most important, and that would be the Ultimate Microbiome, the I-26, the Nightly Essence, Ultimate Enzymes, Dr. Arias's Liver Cleanse, Daily Digest, which I know is back in stock. There's quite a few of them. Focus on digestive health for Graves' disease.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Verna.
All right. Thank you so much, Verna. And next, let's go right over to AJ, which I know he has several questions coming in from our phone line at 855-949-3377. AJ, take
That's
it away.
right. Many questions, Pharmacist Ben. So I'm going to try and go rapid fire. But first, did I hear you say to be fertile, to have babies, that you should be doing it in the shower? Is that what we should glean from that?
AJ.
Okay. So Asia has a question for one of her.
But you know what? That's funny. But just along what you just said, that's why we love hot tubs so much.
Is that
right? Yeah, hot tubs. Everybody loves a hot tub, and sometimes things go on in the hot tubs because you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system. That's exactly what hot water does.
All right. Well, Ben, you're a wealth of info all over the place. So Asasia has a friend who's got thalamus ischemia and is diabetic.
Say again, thalassemia?
No. So I'm guessing this is a thalamus.
Spell it for me. Did you say thalassemia?
No, not thalassemia. So we're not talking about the blood disorder. We're talking about someone who's got a blockage of some sort, like a blood clot. Good googly. Someone who's dealing with a blood a blood clot that caused a stroke.
Okay, so blood clots, whether they're in the thalamus, like a thalamic stroke or whatever it is,
Thalamic stroke.
that's what you're talking about, right?
Ischemia.
All right. Okay, gotcha. So blood clots are a big problem. That's why if they even remotely suspect that you've got an issue with clotting blood or a sluggish heart or atrial fibrillation, they'll just put you on blood thinners. They won't mess around. And blood thinners are extremely powerful drugs. The reason blood thinners are probably the most, or among the most, we'll say, powerful drugs in the pharmacopoeia, even the new ones, which are a little less powerful than the warfarin, which they gave out for many years, is because blood clotting and blood fluidity is probably the single most important biochemical parameter in the body. The control of blood clotting and blood thickening is tightly regulated. The biochemistry that clots the blood occurs in multiple steps. There's probably 18 or 20 different steps that it takes to form a blood clot, because the body takes clotting very seriously and it takes blood fluidity very seriously. So in order to shut that process down or to modify that process from the outside in, you got to use powerful medicine. That being said, you don't want the blood to ever clot. Now, I said yesterday, and I said it before, all disease is cell disease, but all cell disease is preceded by, AJ?
Dirty blood.
Dirty blood. Now, I say dirty blood because that sounds really graphic and you can understand that, but what I'm really talking about is thick, sludgy, clotted blood. See, the blood is not just this liquid. To the layperson, the blood is just some liquid that flows around the body. But to a biochemist, the blood is an incredibly complicated tissue. And it is a tissue. It's a liquid tissue. It's liquid connective tissue. And it's very, very complicated. The blood has to be kept pristine, just the right amount of acid and acid alkaline, just the right pH, just the right amount of oxygen, just the right amount of fat, just the right amount of sugar, just the right amount of proteins, just so. It has to be kept perfectly. Everything has to be just balanced. When things get into the bloodstream that throw off that highly structured and highly coordinated balance of various chemicals, the blood responds by thickening. Why? Why would the blood respond by thickening once toxicity gets into it? Well, if you have toxicity in the blood, and the blood is distributing things all over to the body by slowing down the movement of the blood, you have less likelihood of distributing the toxicity around the body through the cells. So slowing down the blood flow or the movement of blood follows a coagulopathy. Coagulation means thickening, pathy means disease. Coagulopathy is a disease of thickening. So coagulopathy, which represents a good thing to the body, when it happens chronically, will predispose the blood to clotting. It will also deprive cells of oxygen and nutrients, because the blood is delivering oxygen and nutrients, and it will deprive the cells of a route of elimination of toxicity. So this is why all disease is cell disease, but all cell disease is preceded by dirty blood. The main reasons why blood clots inappropriately is, number one, because of toxicity that gets in through a leaky gut. Number one. Number two is a lack of oxygen. Oxygen has a spreading effect on the blood. Oxygen has electrical charges that spread blood cells apart, and when oxygen is not present, the blood cells tend to coagulate and clump up. So, number one, toxicity in the bloodstream through the digestive tract. And by the way, sugar represents a toxin, and sugar will cause a clotting in the blood as well. And then a lack of oxygen will do it. And then a lack of critical key nutrients, particularly fatty nutrients like your ultimate EFAs. Which is why I tell everybody your ultimate EFAs are nature's blood thinners, or natural aspirin. You know, when you have a, excuse me, if you're going to have a stroke, or they suspect you're going to have a stroke, or you have blood clots, what is it the doctor tells you to take every day? Say it louder, Rebecca. I saw your lips move.
Aspirin?
Exactly, a baby aspirin. Why? Because a baby aspirin or an aspirin has an anti-inflammatory effect on the blood. That's why they tell you after you have a heart attack, or if you have after you have a stroke, or to prevent a stroke, an aspirin a day, a baby aspirin a day. Well, guess what? Your ultimate EFAs are nature's aspirin. They're a non-drug aspirin. They're a version of aspirin that is found in foods and supplements. They're God's aspirin. So your ultimate EFAs have a wonderful blood thinning effect. Also, this is kind of interesting, your glucogel caps can be used as a blood thinner, as a natural blood thinner, and also to protect the blood vessels themselves. When the blood vessels are tubes. And like all parts of the body, the tubes are lined with cells. When those cells become damaged, they can secrete inflammatory factors to protect themselves. That's what inflammation does. And those inflammatory factors that are secreted from those broken cells inside the blood vessels, those will also cause blood clotting. And by strengthening the cells that line the tubes, the blood vessel tubes, you can also keep blood flowing more effectively. And that's where your healthy bone and joint pack comes in. While the healthy bone and joint pack is marketed for bones and joints, it will also help strengthen blood vessels to help reduce the secretion of these inflammatory factors from broken blood vessels. These broken cells that line the blood vessels. By the way, they're called endothelial cells. And these endothelial cells can be protected and be strengthened by glucogel caps as well as the healthy bone and joint pack. And then lastly, but not necessarily least, water alone will help dilute the blood, which is why I always tell people first thing in the morning, drink a liter of water. And then once in the middle of the day, drink a liter of water. And then make sure you're using your Beyond Tangy Tangerine, because the more water you drink, and the more you're going to excrete your water-soluble nutrients and your electrolytes, which are you can replace with the Beyond Tangy Tangerine.
Everything you said is accurate because this guy is diabetic, so that explains why he's got the sluggish blood and
yes. This is one of the reasons why diabetes and heart disease go hand in hand. And this is also why you notice the heart is not part of the triangle of disease, but the blood sugar system is. You can't work on the heart directly unless you're working on the blood sugar system. You need to take nutrients for the heart, but they all actually, as it turns out, are important for the blood sugar system.
Okay, Eileen's got memory issues. She heard you on Coast to Coast, and she was trying to understand that you said that if you have memory issues, you kind of want to trace it back to your digestive.
Not necessarily. You want to trace it back to the triangle, and the first point of the triangle is digestion, but also the blood sugar system is involved, and also the third point that we just talked about, the adrenal thyroid axis is also involved. So that goes back to your triangle. Fats, as I said on Coast to Coast, are also very important for the brain, particularly your ultimate EFAs, and also the synaptive, which has fat-soluble vitamins in it. Synaptive is also specific for the brain. And then making sure you're eating correctly. And I know Doc, if he's on the call, will agree with this, is make sure you're getting your eggs and your fish and your cholesterol-containing foods, because cholesterol is very important for the brain. And one of the things that happens when our cholesterol is suppressed artificially by drugs is we end up with mental health problems and memory problems. I also practice my memory. And you do things like, this is not just for memory, but for overall brain health, is practice writing or brushing your teeth or combing your hair with your opposite hand. That will improve neural connections to the brain, number one. And also memorize things. Memorize phone numbers. Memorize your credit card number. Memorize the numbers on I do this at Whole Foods when I go buy almonds or sunflower seeds in the bulk section. You write down the code. Memorize the codes. And here's a little trick for memory. If you like history anyway, I like history. Associate your dates, your numbers with specific historical dates. So if you give somebody, if your number on your raisins is 2637, think of something that happened in 1926 and something that happened in 1937. Or somebody who was born in 1926 and 1937. Use these little memory tricks, and that will improve the memory. So practice your memory, use fats, correct digestive health issues, stabilize your blood sugar, calm the body down. Use your synaptive as well.
For someone to know something that happened in 1926 and 1937, you'd have to be a reader. So Nick called in, and this is my last one. He called in. He's got low white blood cells counts, headaches when he travels, but he's 28, 220, 6 foot, and is wondering what he can do about this diagnosis of low white blood cell counts.
Yes, that could be a serious thing, especially when it happens if it's a young kid. There could be all kinds of underlying health challenges. White blood cells are produced in the bone marrow. So doing things that help with the production of white blood cells, assuming there's no inflammatory issues, which there likely are, through the digestive system. So if you know Nick, ask him about his digestive health.
I asked him about his digestion, and he said, "Oh, digestion is pretty good." I said, "So you're going after you eat a meal?" And he said, "Well, maybe the next day."
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily how frequently you go to the bathroom. It's more like, is there discomfort, digestive discomfort? Is there skin issues? Is there GERD, heartburn, or esophageal reflux disease? It's very difficult, as you know from the model of the triangle disease, it's very difficult to have any other have secondary health issues if there's not some underlying digestive and blood sugar problem, particularly if you're a young person and you're dealing with a low white blood cell count. As far as nutrients go, the B vitamins are going to be the most important beyond tangy tangerine. Also the ultimate EFAs if there's any inflammation going on. Low white blood cell count is not going to happen in a vacuum. There's got to be other things going on to cause that. So that's really where you want to work. And that's kind of a rule of natural medicine, is you want to work upstream from where you see your symptoms. If you just try to work on the symptoms, it's not going to work. You can't just, this is why doctors fail. You can't just work on the symptoms, you got to go upstream. So if he has a low white blood cell count, leukopenia technically, or neutropenia, I would be looking for some other part of the body to work on, and that's typically going to be digestion and blood sugar. Those are red flag. That's a red flag for something that's percolating in the body, especially if it's a young guy. It's a young guy, and you said he had fever, coughs, or chills, or fever, or dizziness. Did you say something like that?
He gets headaches when he travels, he said.
Yeah, those are all red flags. And you want to make sure that you're not on the way to having some other serious health challenge, especially if you're noticing some problems with, like he says, headaches or sore throats or chronic fatigue or problems breathing. It could be an autoimmune disease. It could be something like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. God forbid, it could be like a leukemia or a lymphoma. You don't want to think about that, but it could be. And that's something really to pay attention to. I would be focusing on the first 2 points in the triangle of disease, though.
You the man, Ben.
Thank you.
All right. We have 3 more questions, Ben.
Yes.
First question. Terry wants to know, is the natural early AM cortisol spike, also referred to as the dawn phenomenon,
Yes,
effectively blunted, abolished by AM exercise enough such that post-workout AM protein intake with the morning shake effectively is uptaken, assimilated by metabolic syndrome?
Yes. The purpose of that dawn effect, and a lot of people notice that they wake up at 4 a.m. and they can't go back to sleep. That's a surge of cortisol. That's the dawn cortisol. But a lot of people get that in the middle of the night. If they have a nightmare, they think about something troublesome. So cortisol spikes are supposed to happen first thing in the morning. And yes, the purpose of that cortisol spike is to get your butt out of bed, to do something. And exercise is a perfect response to that. And no, it will not impact absorption of nutrients after you work out.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Next is Cindy. Cindy, go ahead and unmute yourself. And Cindy has a question for you as well. Go ahead, Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
I do. This year has brought a cascade of several different diagnoses. However, the issue that I wanted to get your feedback on is the gut health.
Yes.
I had previously 5 or 6 years ago been through the leaky gut situation, got that cleared up over time. Right now, I'm working on clearing up overgrowth of yeast in the gut, and my physician has also said that we need to address parasites, and so I'm taking a number of things to address the parasites.
What do you take?
almost completely eliminated sugar from my diet, not 100%, but very close.
Okay.
And so,
What drug are they giving you? What anti-parasitic are they giving you? Mebendazole?
I have got a whole bunch of things here. One of them says it's sensitive plant.
Are you,
Okay.
is this a physician, like a medical doctor you're going to?
This is my chiropractor who likes to work with his people for these kind of things. I'm also doing some bioactive carbon in one of them, and it's got several other things like pineapple, artichoke, mulberry, and so forth. Another one.
Those are all kind of cute. I don't know they're going to change your life. They're cute.
Okay.
And you know,
yeah. Well, I've got a whole handful.
The problem with parasites are was a couple problems. First of all, unfortunately, a lot of healthcare professionals will just throw that out the way doctors throw out genetics. You know, doctors will say, "Oh, your mother had cancer, so or your mother had diabetes, so you'll have it, or your mother had an autoimmune." So a lot of times, alternative practitioners will use the parasite word, and they'll say, "Oh, it's parasites." So unless you actually know you have parasites, you actually found parasites in your stool, and I don't know if you've ever seen worms in your stool, but they're pretty noticeable. You would notice that. I'm not sure how anybody would diagnose parasites except for saying, "Oh, I think you have parasites."
So he said it was indicated by some. He did a stool sample test, and he saw something that chemically, I think it was chemically. It wasn't actually parasites he saw, or you know, he didn't see it, but whoever did the test, that there was something that indicated. He said, if I see this, that means you have parasites.
Well, I'm going to assume that he's correct, although it doesn't. Just because he says that doesn't mean that's true. But let's say, let's say he's correct. I don't know how you would kill parasites without killing other things. And obviously, you have living creatures in your body that are important, like the bacteria in your gut. So I don't know how you kill parasites without killing gut bacteria. A much more effective strategy, if it's if you're saying you have digestive health, is uses work with digestive protocols, using the digestive nutrients that we just named, as well as eliminating problem foods. Also, making sure you're having regular bowel movements is also going to be very important.
Yes.
That's also important. Yeast, which you mentioned, are very tricky. And the best way to deal with yeast, and the best way really to deal with any kind of gut problem, including parasites, is to make sure that your microbiome is healthy. The bacteria are healthy. And the best way to do that is with microbiome probiotic supplementation, fermented foods.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Ultimate microbiome, fiber. You might want to throw in the Dr. Arias's liver cleanse as well, because bile plays an important role in the health of the intestine and in the microbiome, the environment for the microbiome. And if you have a gallbladder issue or a bile issue or a liver issue, that can compromise the health of the intestine. So I don't know if that's true, if you do have any issues that way. Those seem like they'd be more appropriate targets to approach than trying to attack parasites, which is kind of like a vague term. Did he say which parasites they are? I mean, when they say parasites, healthy bodies have parasites in the menu. So I'm a little careful when I hear a chiropractor say parasites, unless they know specifically what parasites they're talking about, or they've done some kind of specific biopsy or stool examination to find parasites. Shy of that, just saying you have parasites, that sounds I'm a little skeptical about that.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Cindy.
I'm gonna do one more here, Rebecca.
Yep, we're going to do one more. And just to add a little in kind of insert on that is, if there are confirmed parasites, Dr. Joanne Conway does have a parasite cleanse that has been very effective.
What is that called, Rebecca?
It's the 20-day gut protocol.
That might be something to do as well. And Dr. Conway, by the way, she knows 10 times, 100 times more about the digestive system than I do. She's the expert on the digestive tract, not me.
Yeah, and she will be on the show. Yes, she will. Okay. And Youngevity does have a couple products that are included, that she includes in that. One of them is a GI cleanse, which is a tincture, one that's not included in her protocol, but was recently added with the adoption of the Life Force products, is Tehibo, which is a Pau de Arco extract.
Pau de Arco, and
Yeah.
also another one called wormwood or artemisia.
Wormwood.
Yeah.
Yep. Walnut, black walnut hulls,
right,
another
black
good one.
Typically,
Yeah,
if you have
absolutely.
a parasitic infection, you're going to have skin problems as well as immune problems and digestive problems. So, you know, shy of those, people throw around the term parasites a lot, and unless you actually found Giardia or Cryptosporidium or some kind of toxoplasma or something in your stool, I would be a little bit skeptical on that.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. Jill, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, Ben.
Hi there, Jill.
I think the GI cleanse that you just mentioned has wormwood in it.
Okay. Yeah, that's the traditional herb for killing bacteria,
Yeah.
Artemisia.
Yeah. Okay. I'm back to the thyroid that you were talking about. I have someone who has benign cysts on her thyroid. However, they told her they were pretty sure they were cancerous because of a biopsy that they did. They said that she had only a 5% chance that they weren't, but then it came back that they weren't cancer.
They were not. They were not.
So, yes. So, I mean, I'm assuming the 90 selenium and Ocean's Gold, but I'm just.
All that would be great. All that would be great. First of all, thyroid cancer is one of the most overdiagnosed cancers, and thyroid removals are extremely common. So just because somebody tells you have thyroid cancer doesn't necessarily mean you do. You should, anybody been diagnosed as such, I would get multiple opinions before I have my thyroid removed, simply because once without a thyroid, then you're running on your stress hormones rather than thyroid hormone, and that's not good for anybody. So just because somebody gets diagnosed with thyroid cancer doesn't mean it's necessarily the case because of how often it's overdiagnosed. As far as cysts go, cysts need to be attributed always to number one, female hormone, estrogen. And this is why, by the way, thyroid disease affects women 10 times more than men. I don't know if you know that. And autoimmune disease also affects women 10 times more than men. So number one, I would start to work on estrogen. And number two, the next biggest reason, or another big reason for the formation of cysts and growths in general, is insulin, which is a blood sugar problem. So again,
Hello? One of us is frozen.
I think
I thought it was me.
One of us is frozen. I didn't hear what he said about blood sugar.
I think it's Pharmacist Ben. He didn't want to
Oh.
answer your question, Jill.
Okay.
No. That is not how he is. But well, folks, hopefully he will be back. So that's a great question, Jill. We'll get a final and complete answer for you, because that's definitely something that needs to be considered when it comes to the thyroid and the importance of estrogen and how that's affected, and when we're looking at a possible diagnosis of thyroid cancer. So thank you so much for that question, Jill. I'm going to message him and make sure that we do get an answer on that. And I was hoping Ben would be on to hear this. As Nancy put into the chat, she says, I try to be on every day, usually at least 3 times a week. And Ben, I want you to know I found today to be in the top 3 talks, if not number 1. Thank you for sharing. So folks, Nancy, thank you for sharing that. I absolutely agree. So folks, make sure that you're sharing this program with other people, because we covered a lot of ground. And when it comes to the Triangle Health, looking at the digestive system, looking at blood sugar, that's going to affect the cortisol. And when you've got the first 2 things under control and you are intentionally addressing them, the body just is able to function better, and you're going to thank yourself, and somebody else is going to thank you for sharing this program with them. So folks, I just want to thank all of you for being here and watching, taking the time out of your schedules to empower yourself with knowledge. And I also want to thank my co-hosts as they join us here every day, each week, in helping me to provide a seamless, unless internet connections, work against us, a seamless presentation so that you can focus on just absorbing the information without interruption. To add to the gratitude that I have, if you're here live with us, folks, and you've got that chat open, you're seeing one of the skills that Marilyn, who's right next to me on the screen here, has, as she's putting information into the chat, and being very on top of it and doing the transcription of what's being said, and also the questions and answers that are coming into the program. Thank you so much, Marilyn, for doing that. If you're here also, you were let in by our gatekeeper, Albert. So thank you, Albert, for being on top of getting people into the Zoom room promptly, because I know that's very important for them to hear the information. Thank you, Albert. And we also have Phyllis, Phyllis is putting information into that chat. She's also out on the different platforms and providing information and bringing questions in as they come. And even if she doesn't come on screen bringing on questions, all of my co-hosts, they're going to take questions that they see and put them into a chat that I see so that we can make sure that we get those addressed on the show. So thank you so much, Phyllis, for all that you do. And we have my executive production manager, Ruth Ellen, who is helping to make sure everything stays organized on task as we're getting set up each and every day for the show, and then pushing the stream out to the different platforms. So thank you, Ruth Ellen. And folks, if you're on one of those platforms, make sure that you comment, make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you share, give us some love, because if it wasn't for AJ, chances are you would not be able to watch this program or listen to this program on the many different platforms that we are on, including Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible. Folks, we are also on Rumble, iHeart, Radio FM. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And thankful to this individual who is finding where people are listening so that we can create those accounts and get the message shared. So thank you so much, AJ, for your time that you put into this, because I know it's very important to you and you take it very serious. So everybody, and he doesn't like that stuff. But anyways, folks, thank you so much for taking the time and being here with us. Oh, do you have your hand raised? Did you want to say something? We do have a special for physicians and those in the medical community, an event that is happening Sunday. So if you or somebody you know qualifies for that, go to impact.dailywithdoc.com. Share that website with them. The presentation is going to be at 2 p.m. Sunday, December 8th. If you are watching this after that presentation and you qualify, reach out to us at info@dailywithdoc.com, and we will make sure that you get that information, because folks, nutrition is so important, and you are working hard to help your clients and your patients reach their optimal best. That might be a missing link that's keeping them from getting there. So we want to make sure that you have the opportunity not only to help them more and at a higher or deeper level, because we're looking at root cause solutions, but you owe it to yourself and them, and it brings you in another income stream. So it all comes around. Thank you so much, everybody. My name is Becca Dukes. As the hostess of this program and also the Director of Student Services for the Institute of Holistic Health, we invite you to share your love, your passion for others and yourself. Give us 90 days. If you're not already on the program already, give us 90 days. Get back with the person that shared this program with you. If there's no one to thank, give us a call at 855-949-3377. or reach out to us through email, questions@dailywithdoc.com. Whether it's for yourself and just wanting to help yourself, or you are interested in receiving a thank you check for helping others find better health, those are the people and the numbers you need to get back with. So until next time, thanks for joining us, and go to dailywithdoc.com to get your good foods, bad foods to help you make better food choices in helping your digestion. Bye for now. And also the store. Wait, is that a buy or is that a wait? Oh, buy. Okay. The store at dailywithdoc.com does have the products that Pharmacist Ben mentioned on the program today. We want to do a shout out and a thank you to Dr. Wallach for making this crusade possible. And even though I mentioned the store, get back with the person that shared this program with you. Bye for now. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have the founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have the founding father of the science of epigenetics guide providing us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal